Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with review Masterclass number 1. It only took a day before you started sending in stuff for me to pick apart, one review at a time, and I thank you very much for doing it. As I said, I think we're going to have a good time, and I want to get right into it. As I mentioned before, just to keep everybody on the same level and not humiliate anyone, I'm not going to be using personal names. We're just going to be talking about the review copy. And I noted this first review was allegedly translated quite well, I might add, from an original review that appeared in Portuguese. Now, if English is not your first language, but you feel that you can get something in decent English grammatical syntax, don't let that stop you. I'm going to treat it as though English is your first language. And if I get something that's just grammatically off the wall, so we don't spend the whole time doing the grammar lesson, I just won't use it. But if I can, I will. And this is a perfect case in point, because, issues such as, accurate choice of words are going to be just as important for those of you who do use English as your first language. Trust me. So please don't take offense, first of all, if I treat this as a regular English text, because it's the only way I can do it. And second of all, I just want that to be the understanding going in. Here we go. So this is a review of Chopin's Scherzos, Opus 20, all 4 of them. I'll just put it that way. He lists them. He lists them and puts the date down for when they were composed. You don't need to do that. There's no point. And the Piano Concerto No. 2 from the Chopin competition winner people. So this is Seong-Jin Cho, piano, the London Symphony Orchestra under Gianandrea Noseda on Deutsche Grammophon. Here's the review. So I'm going to read it through, and then we are going to get into the weeds with some suggestions and things. So here we go. Every 5 years, the very small world of classical music entertains itself by torturing young people. I'm talking about the Chopin competition in Warsaw, the most famous, important, and tiresome competition for pianists. 2020, of course, pushed the competition to 2021, and we all ended up following endless weeks of people playing Chopin, selling Chopin perfume. Selling Chopin perfume, eating Chopin chocolates, and strolling through public spaces in Poland named Chopin. Spoiler, all of them. Boys and girls who enter the Chopin competition get stuck there for over a month. However, it's worth it. The winners usually come out aged and traumatized, but also with nice fat contracts under their arms. This is the case for the South Korean Seong-Jin Cho, who won the previous edition and has already released several little discs for the venerable Deutsche Grammophon. Now we receive from him this anthology of the fabulous scherzos, which are the most impressive things Chopin composed, according to myself. Chopin plays all 4 in the old-fashioned way, like a daredevil virtuoso, super fast, floating time and dynamics without fear of making mistakes and being happy. You listen to everything on the edge of your seat. The album is completed by Cho performing the Concerto No. 2, accompanied by the Italian Gianandrea Noseda. It's not bad, but you should put the scherzos on repeat forever. Okay. There's the review. It's one pithy paragraph, which I like. It's not so pithy, but it's one paragraph. It's really 2 paragraphs that are run on, because the first paragraph, let's just say, begins with a discussion of the competition and competitions generally, and then the second actually talks about the music. Now, when you're writing under great constraints of time or word value or whatever like that, or space, you got to be really careful. It's really tricky. The most important thing, I would say, first is the music on the disc. These observations about competitions are amusing, and they're witty, and they may be true, but they take up way too much space that should be devoted to discussing the performances, particularly that of the second piano concerto, because the only thing you say about it here is that it's not bad. Well, that tells us absolutely nothing. You have to go into it in a little bit more detail than that. The scherzos, okay, you talk about them as a clump. I understand, again, because you don't have a lot of space, but it would really make sense to pick one out or two out and give a few specific examples of passages that you're referring to, not just saying, well, they're all played fast and that's wonderful and he's happy and you love them. I mean, we know that. Again, the you like it or don't like it has to flow out of, or at least you can begin with that, what you like or don't like. It doesn't matter where you put it, but it has to flow out of the actual music making. I'll give you an example, one that's been quite controversial that I've used, calling Klaus Mekela the Ken doll of classical music because he has no balls and all that stuff. I mean, a lot of you have written to me and said, oh, that's offensive. It's an ad hominem attack. It's terrible. Well, yes, it is. I mean, I understand some people might be offended, and it is personal, but it's personal to his music making. Most people don't even bother to listen to what I actually have to say about the recordings, the detail that I go into about the recordings. And that's why I call him that. We don't start with that. Do you understand? It's a conclusion resulting from the nature of the music making. And whether you believe that justifies it or not is up to you. Everyone's going to be different in that respect. But that's the way I do it. And that's the way you should do it here too. You can still make all kinds of wisecracks about the competition world. Although I have to say everyone does that. So, I mean, they better be good ones. Let's start at the beginning and just have a few technical points about word choice and things like that. Every 5 years, the very small world of classical music entertains itself by torturing young people. Okay, that's all right. I'm talking about the Chopin competition. You might want to run that together grammatically, by torturing young people in the form of the Chopin competition in Warsaw. One statement rather than chopping it up into separate sentences. But anyway, I'm talking about the Chopin competition in Warsaw, the most famous, important, and tiresome competition for pianists. Tiresome, I do not believe is the right word there. I think what you mean to say is exhausting, because it's the pianists who get tired. Unless what you really want to say is that it's we who are sick to death of it. It's tiresome for us, which is a very different concept. So just be aware of that. That may be a translation issue. So as I said, I'm assuming that these are not translation issues and we're just dealing with word choice. So here we go. 2002, of course, pushed the competition to 2021, and we all ended up following endless weeks of people playing Chopin, selling Chopin perfume, eating Chopin chocolates, and strolling through public spaces in Poland named Chopin. Spoiler, all of them. Well, I think that's actually a cute line. I just don't think there's room for it in the space that you allot for this review. I mean, you don't have to get into what happens if you're actually there, because most of the people reading this review will not have been there. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So there we go. Boys and girls who enter the Chopin competition, I would just say artists. I mean, they're not really boys and girls. I give them a little bit more credit for being a little bit more mature, because some of these people have been are pretty well seasoned by the time they get to the competition. So let's be fair. You don't want to misstate what's really going on. Okay, they get stuck there for over a month. However, it's worth it. Well, that's sort of an odd conclusion to come from everything that you've just said, which is that it's all like a big, huge waste of time. They get stuck there for over a month, period. You don't have to say, however, it's worth it. The winners usually come out aged and traumatized, but also with nice fat contracts under their arms. Nice fat. I don't know, because most of them get dumped after making one or two recordings, don't they? But they come out with contracts. You don't have to modify everything. In other words, it's not necessary to make fun of everything that happens. It's worth it to them because they come out with contracts. That's what you might say. This is the case for South Korean Seong-Jin Cho, who won the previous competition, I would say, and has already released several little discs for the venerable Deutsche Grammophon. Okay, that's translation, I'm sure, but has already released several titles on Deutsche Grammophon, or for the venerable Deutsche Grammophon is okay. But little discs, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that's for. Okay, and now here's really the review. And it's what you've said before lasts longer than the actual discussion of the music. Now we receive from this, we receive from him this anthology of the fabulous scherzos, which are the most impressive things Chopin composed, according to myself. Well, nobody cares. No one cares what you think about the Chopin scherzos. I mean, yes, I think it matters when a composer is less known and the works aren't so well known. But Chopin scherzos are, I mean, everybody knows them and loves them, and we don't need your opinion on them because it's only going to take away from what you're talking about and focus attention on yourself, rather, and your opinion on the music, which in some senses, because it's such standard repertories, is beyond our judgment. If there's lots of space and you have reasons for explaining why you have a particular view of well-known works, well, that's okay. I mean, I do it all the time. We do that. Or if you want to be sort of controversial and say, well, Chopin scherzos, everyone loves them, but I think they suck. I mean, well, that's another issue. But you got to have the space to make your case. And you don't have that here. So to just throw that out is a little bit distracting, I think. So according to myself. Now we get to the actual reviews, which is just really 2 sentences out of this whole thing. 2 sentences about the performance. There's just got to be more. I'm sorry. There just does. Cho plays all 4 in the old-fashioned way, like a daredevil virtuoso, super fast, floating time and dynamics without fear of making mistakes and being happy. Okay, well, there are all kinds of issues with that sentence because now, and the reason is because you're at the end of the review and you're just starting to actually write the review. And that means you are going to wind up doing lots of longer sentences with, dependent clauses chained onto them to try and cover what you want to say in the shortest possible space. Give yourself space to say what you want. I'm not going to go into this in all, whether virtuosi were old-fashioned and daredevils and whether they all played everything super fast. And I don't know what floating time and dynamics without fear means. Again, it may be a translation issue. Floating is certainly not the right word there. And I'm not sure what the right word is, without fear of making mistakes. And being happy, well, I don't think you need to say that in that way and being happy. You might say, for example, like a daredevil virtuoso, super fast, happily, whatever, time and dynamics without fear of making mistakes. You understand? You get the happy concept in. Fewer words, more room to talk about other things. That's always a good thing to be able to do. And then finally, you listen to everything on the edge of your seat. Again, shouldn't be a full sentence. You got that concept already with the daredevil stuff. You really did. And then the last sentence, which is the whole thing about the second piano concerto. Well, I've already explained why that's unsatisfactory. I mean, the piano concerto is the biggest work on the disc. It's the main work on the disc, even though you may like the scherzos better. It just is, and you need to treat it in some detail. Saying it's not bad says nothing. So there you have it, my friends. I hope that the writer finds this a useful commentary, and I hope that you've found it interesting to hear me go through it. This particular writer actually sent in 2 reviews, and I think we'll cover both of them because they're very different. And then there are a whole bunch more, and I really, at least this first outing, you understand that I'm not here to tear you apart. I'm not here to jump up and down and carry on. We are here to learn and to exchange information and hopefully improve our skills as critics and listeners and as writers as well. So keep on listening, friends, and keep on writing. Thank you so much for joining me and for participating in this new series. I think it's going to be just a ton of fun. Take care.